You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So speaking of LinkedIn, there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to be asking the question, should Seth Luttrell keep his job? And a lot of people have already answered that question for themselves. That's a question that Brent Venables and his staff are going to have to, and really Joe Castiglione and Joseph Harris are going to have to kind of wade into the weeds. I don't know if that's a decision that needs to be made right now. Yes, the offensive game plan was terrible. The play calling was not good. The preparation was not good. The execution was not good. I just don't know if you can attribute all of that to the offensive coordinator without taking into account the injuries that they've dealt with along the offensive line, the quarterback changes that you've suffered, and the inconsistency at quarterback that you've had all season long. So if that's a discussion that they have and come to that decision, I completely understand it. If they decide to move forward, I also completely understand it.
Yeah, and I know Brent Venables mentioned that in the presser that the quarterback change was not even in the discussion at the time, and I'm wondering why. I'm kind of curious to what made him believe that, no, we need to stick it with one place and continue to go. You could see in Jackson Arnold's face, he wanted to get in that game. He wanted to take a stab at it. He wanted to try. You saw the competitive fire. It looked like it was starting to light back in him. So now we'll find out how practices go this come week. You know, Venables is going to have to answer a lot of those questions, especially preparing for South Carolina. You're going to have to prepare both of them at this point. And I don't know if there's going to be a true competition because we've seen Hawkins actually be willing to throw it a lot more downfield in comparison to what we saw from Jackson. But at the same time, that discussion's going to have to probably happen. Now, I love your point of the offensive coordinator. I know everybody wants them fired. I put out a little tweet on X, and I just said it's time. You can interpret that any way you want. It literally went no direction. And I said that because you have two options in a way. You could fire your OC. You could fire both your OCs, basically, and promote some analysts up and kind of reset the season. Or you can bring in an additional analyst who has had prior success in other places and see if he can help with trying to figure out what is causing the problem or where the bottleneck is in the offense. You can go either direction. No matter what, you're going to have to figure something out with these quarterbacks. Something's going to have to happen, right? I wondered if they even thought about bringing Brendan Zurbrugg again, let him try to get a couple throws in. I know that Casey's knee is not the best, so you really don't want to go to him unless it's like a break glass in case of emergency situation. But I do believe that Hawkins brings the fire for the team. It appears that the team is really rallying behind him. You've heard it in a lot of the comments. So I know everybody wants somebody fired. We fired Josh Heupel because of a similar type of performance, but Heupel had an entire season to try to figure it out. After that season, it's done. And so the cards that were dealt for this offensive side, you typically don't see anyone get fired because of it, because that's kind of where the grace comes in of, yeah, you lost 5 wide receivers, 5 key components. You also lost your offensive line was shuffled around. You had to go through 4 centers at one point. It's all the luck of the injuries there. There's not much you can do about. So you give them a little grace there. At the same time, sometimes your quarterback just needs to make a play. That needs to be them. If they are him, as a lot of people would like to give people that title, then he needs to be him. Go out there and make a play. You make the play. You take what the coach gives you. You move whatever you feel like makes the most sense, and boom, you make a play. Sometimes it's on their eyes, their arms, their thought processes as much as it is the OC. But in this entire situation, we'll continue to blame the coaching staff because they've got to prepare them better. But John, you make a valid point. When is it time to go ahead and try for another quarterback competition? Because neither one of your quarterbacks decided they wanted to throw it downfield in the game. They needed to throw it downfield.
Yeah, and I don't know if they need to reopen the quarterback situation right now. I don't know if that's where you need to head with it. At the same time, man, it feels like if you're going to, now's the time.
Yep.
Even if you wanted to run a 2 quarterback set, they say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. Well, right now, the passing game is not really going anywhere. The offense is not really going anywhere. So what do you have to lose by trying both guys? You don't really have anything to lose. Listen,
Nope.
If you believe in Michael Hawkins, by all means, continue to run with Michael Hawkins. At the same time, if you believe in Michael Hawkins, let him throw the dang ball. Quit pulling him back. Quit preaching turnovers. Quit getting in their heads about protecting the football and just live with what you live with a true freshman quarterback. There's going to be mistakes. You cannot coach aggressiveness out of these players because they've got to be able to go and make a play. And I mean, there were several times where it's like the throw was right there and he's looking right at it. But because I think there's been such a push against, the quarterbacks, making them protect the ball, telling them, hey, we got to not allow any turnovers, not give the ball away, that they're not willing to throw the ball. And so listen, I have an affinity for Jackson Arnold. I think he's a really good player. I think he's got a ton of talent. I think Michael Hawkins has a ton of talent. I think he's got the right men's mindset and the mentality to bounce back from this performance. At the same time, the coaches just need to get out of his head and say, hey, here's the play call. Go throw the ball. Like, just sling it.
You know that there's going to be an opening, especially on the check down. It's okay to take the check down and let the running backs do something in space. We've seen them do good things in space. We've seen them do bad things in space. But go ahead and give everybody the opportunity to do something. And that's one of the things you're going to have to try. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be a little stressful. But there's so many ways that you have to find a fix here. And I hate that, we have to sit here and speculate with such a broad stroke of options. That's where, to me, the problem lies. We've got so many different things that we can consider when it comes to what we could try that you almost don't have anything that you can actually try. We kind of talked about that a little bit. You have too many options. Sometimes you don't have any options. So it's at this. I want to say you need to go ahead and pull it back to the studs, kind of like Venables mentioned when he first got here and got the job. You don't have that kind of time. You got South Carolina coming up. You need to find a way to get some activity, especially because that pass rush at South Carolina is actually good. They're dangerous in that capacity. So you're going to have to find a way to get something going, get rid of the ball. But then from there, you can't throw too much weight on your defense because it appears that the defense mentally kind of quits when they see that they're literally down bad. Like, there's no chance of anything happening. It's felt like in that Texas game. They did everything you wanted in the first quarter. That was the perfect first quarter for what you needed out of this team. I had Texas people saying that they thought that Quinn was hurt. They said, yep, Quinn needs to get out. He doesn't look like he's the same dude. He doesn't look right. They kept saying it, and I'm just like, this is what happens when the defense is clicking on all cylinders. Then we forced that fumble, and we didn't hustle to the ball. Then we fumble the ball. Then we fumble it again. And to me, it was like defense is like, look, man, what y'all want us to do? We can't score touchdowns that easily. They're not going to even throw the ball in a space where we can even pick it off now. They know. They're not dumb.
Right.
Sarkisian ran that match. And that's what I would like us to do. I like us to get to the point where we're just creating little spots. Because late in the game, you start seeing throws across the middle and guys were open. It's like, oh, wow, look at that catch. Man, can we do more of those? Give me some Kearney on a deep curl. It's okay. If the DB decides to cheat up on that route, move into a slant. Find a way to get those DBs to stay close so that you can go ahead and put a little bit of a max protect or an additional set of protection and just launch that thing deep and let somebody run underneath it. If you do that enough, even if you don't complete them, they're going to start chasing them. They're going to start stepping back and saying, all right, watch out for the deep pass. And if it doesn't work, right, or if it does work, then you really got it open to where that middle is wide open for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and listen, this isn't to completely dump on the entire thing because I did like some of the bootleg stuff that they were doing with Michael Hawkins. Getting him out in space. It's just you need to then get a guy open and you need to throw the football when the guy is open. You need to anticipate him coming open and throw the football. So listen, there's a lot that needs to be fixed, and maybe it doesn't get fixed until the off season, when you can actually either make an offensive coordinator change or really tailor your offense to whichever quarterback you're going with at that point, or having a full-blown quarterback competition going into next year. We'll see. But you do have to get some things right ahead of South Carolina. We're going to talk about how big of a difference was there between Oklahoma and Texas coming up. Were there any bright spots? There might have been a couple.